Up next. Okay, now that you've heard that, now that 17% of you are actually scared that your job's going to be taken by AI, but 82% of you say, no, a computer will never take my job. Thank you for bringing confidence and hearing what Chris has to say, that the computer not going to take your job as long as we make sure that it doesn't. And with that, I actually bring up Jelle. Jelle has this really fantastic system that actually helps a lot of people to understand hyper-personalization. And he does use an AI, and he's going to show you how some of it works. But afterwards, also, Jelle and I are going to talk about some of the new things that they're actually working on. So take it away, Jelle.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much. Also, thanks a lot for allowing me to talk about something I'm really, really passionate about, which is personalization. To me, personalization has really to do with people. In the end, I think design, whether it's fashion or eyewear or footwear, it is in the end, it's about people. And I think that with the way we develop our systems, the way we develop technology, maybe we should rethink a little bit about what we're doing, because I don't think in the common way we approach things that we fully will grasp end consumers. And if you want to do personalization, you do need to understand consumers. So let me take you first into a consumer perspective. I'm not sure who of you is wearing eyewear, but I assume some of you, and I think most of you also have had the experience of buying a frame. And buying a frame is not that easy. There are many choices to make. Whether you're in the store, you have hundreds of frames that you can try. Whether you're online, there are also 100 at least frames that you can try out. Trying online is a little bit more difficult. Thankfully, there are also virtual try-on solutions. But there is something missing. Where you in the store can often rely on a styling consultant, I believe that this is something really difficult. So keep on trying. What fits with me? Does it fit with my face? Does it fit with my budget? Is it trendy enough? Does my girlfriend like it? And so on. So from a user perspective, quite difficult to get started. And I believe that personalization can help consumers better understand what fits with them, both on a fitting level, but also on a aesthetical level. And I think it's not just good for the consumer, it is also good for brands and retailers. So for us, personalization is supposed to bring efficiency and a sustainable future. Efficiency in a way that we can better recommend frames online specifically. A lot of people have to be going to the website in order to buy something. About 1 to 3% of people actually buy a frame. In the store, it's a little bit higher, but also quite low sales conversions. At the same time, we see often whether it's fashion or eyewear, a lot of brands that struggle with the indirect relation that they have with the customers. What I mean with that is that there are quite a lot of big players out there, let's say TikTok, Instagram, Zalando, Amazon, major IT players that can be used as a channel for sales. Sales that will definitely generate sales. So it's good for the brand, but on the other hand, the end consumer is only better understood by those IT companies, by those IT giants. A huge challenge we face online is high product return rates, depending on the category, 30 to 60%. Even in eyewear, what we've been working with a lot, we see high return rates, and a lot of that is because of sizing, and unfortunately landfills are being filled, and unfortunately products are being burned, even in eyewear. Part of that is because of a limited understanding of consumer behaviors. AI might be able to help with this, specifically if it comes to personalization. So understanding the product, recommending a product, and making sure that the consumer buys the right product rather than a wrong one that he or she will return. I believe you had a pretty damn good introduction into AI just before this, but I just want to take you to the AI 101 principle. There's data, there's this big black magical box that does pattern recognition, some simulations, and then will automatically make some decisions. Important here is that there is a feedback loop. So we learn from our data and we get better and better and better. The idea is that the output of an AI can be used for detection, validation, prediction, and even generation of products. In other words, AI promises to help solve problems, learn, plan, even understand us, and for 13% that is afraid of us, do things for us. I don't think we're there yet because there are some pitfalls, some caveats that I believe hold us back from, or hold AI back from taking us over. So just to make a little bit of a comparison, there is a big difference. AI never sleeps. We do. AI does deal with big data, a lot of big data sets. We don't have that capability that well. AI keeps on learning, and at a certain age, there's not so much that you can capture anymore, even though I try to learn and keep on learning. But in general, AI is very objective, whereas we are more subjective, efficiency focused, rather we are experience focused. AI really goes well over structured data, metrical, programmed, very predictable data, whereas we as humans are better at dealing with relational, holistic, experiential data. So in order to overcome that, I think in order to make really good personalization, I think we need to find AI in a way that it can reunite with human intelligence. And the last point I would like to point out, and we'll give a few examples later, is that AI can be quite biased, and it's not because the AI is biased in itself, but considering the previous image, in order for an AI to decide what is good, what is bad, we have to feed it, and we as humans often feed it. So that's the reason why those systems are sometimes quite biased. So I think it's our role as people to make sure that the algorithms are not biased. So what we see a lot in personalization is that we recommend consumers something that other people also liked. And this is often based on demographics and technographics conversations. So we look at gender, we look at age, we find someone with the same gender, with the same age, from the same location, from the same title, similar marital status, proxies that will put people into a bucket. Conversational, a little bit more about what kind of keywords is someone searching for. So you get a little bit more depth, but specifically looking at the demographics, it is quite limited. It's probably the last time I will use this example, but on the left, we see someone with the same age as the one on the right. They are both Prince of Wales, at least one was Prince of Wales, and the other one is Prince of Darkness. They have a similar income, they live in the same kind of area up till now. In other words, if you look from a demographic perspective, they are quite similar. If you look at them and you would buy them, or if you recommend them some clothing or eyewear, that is probably not the case. So we think it's important not to just look at demographics, but really try to understand people on a desire level. We've been talking about color before, and I think that if I ask this to our data scientists, they either come back with me, what is the color of this shirt? They either say blue or green, where I might go to turquoise or mint, but I'm sure all of you have your own unique words of describing it. And this is a challenge in AI, specifically when we try to recommend products, because in the end, maybe we want to know the color of the shirt, but maybe we just want to know how this color appeals to someone, how this color fits with someone's undertone. So rather than classifying every product in their RGB code or their HSL, we think it's important that we try to take the understanding of a consumer from a perception perspective. Another example that I'd like to bring is that AI challenges with the following. And I'm going to ask you the same. And I think most of you have a, let's say, engineering background. So you're probably going to arrive at the same answer as I used to come. Which of the horizontal lines is the same? And you probably figure it out. They are both equally long. They're both equally long. But from a perception perspective, from a first impression, I think you would also be honest to yourself and say, yeah, the one on the bottom feels longer. And this is something that AI wouldn't pick up. AI would say they're equally long. And when we design recommender systems, when we try to help people find the right product that fits with them, we need to take into consideration those kind of perceptions. We think that it needs a few things to do this really well, to really do personalization. And for us, it depends on three things. The first thing is really, really well understand your consumers. So beyond demographics, really try to understand context, their desires, getting consumer perspective on a unique level in detail. It's also important that you try to understand your products in a different way, not from a manufacturing perspective, but from a consumer experience perspective. And the last thing that we think is important is that AI can give quite good recommendations. It's also important to notice that we don't want to force someone what is good or bad. It's very easy to make a biased decision. It's very easy to ingrain a biased direction in your recommendation, saying, let's say, this certain color will look good on you, and therefore you have to wear it. We think it's important that we come with proper recommendations that are based on common perceptual rules, rules not to be programmed, but rules to be ingrained in the algorithm, but then also realize that people are different, that they have a personality, that they have an attitude, that they are more outspoken, that they are friendly, that they want to be a little bit more dramatic. And we think it's important to make sure that there's also an interaction between consumers and the brands. So for us, that means we're not going to look that much at demographics. Rather, we focus on understanding someone's size, someone's body shape, someone's facial shape, taste, trend sensitivity, brand sensitivity, but also someone's preference for style, aesthetics, and also understanding someone's context of purchase. Let me give you an example and go back to the eyewear. What is eyewear about? Eyewear is not only about the price and the brand, it has to do with you. So what we have developed is a AI-driven style recommender that, like a stylist in a store, would look at you as a consumer. It would analyze your face. We would give a first recommendation that is quite in line with your facial features, but then also tease out some interaction to make sure that you get the right kind of product. Let me see if this works. I think you will see a shop. Let me just continue. So this is a tool that we have built that can be integrated by retailers. We have integrated across Europe and North America. And what it does, it is a digital stylist. So taking over the role of a stylist and understanding you and recommending the frames. So a good recommendation starts with making a good photo. So we need good lighting. Consumer needs to be actually in the camera, and the consumer needs to look straight into the camera. So let me just do that. Oh, yes, a little bit too nervous for the presentation. So let's try again. I still was wearing my glasses. So what you see here is that we analyze my face, and not whether I have a round face, square face, or oval face. We think it's very important to look at someone's unique features. So we look at the jawline, the thickness of the eyebrows, the width of the face, to make sure that I don't get a frame that is too big or too small. We look at ratios, and we also look at color. So color, not so much about the color of my skin, but also about the contrast and the undertone of my skin. So let's say that I'm cool or warm neutral. When I recommend a frame, we'd rather go for a silver or a golden one, depending on someone's undertone. And we look at contrast, because the first recommendation we give is something that is kind of balanced with someone's original facial features. So currently looking through the collection of a retailer. There we are. So I got some frames recommended, frames that fit the shape of my eyebrow, fit the shape of my jawline, have a contrast that matches with my face. And it really helps me to just explore who I am. Those first frames, they fit with me from an aesthetical perspective. But I also have the chance to go a little bit more explorative and say I would like something a little bit more bold, but at the same time also a little bit more reserved. I think I can go even more reserved. So this tool can be integrated by retailers, very effective in the sense that we recommend frames even before someone starts to randomly try and does some trial and error before finding out the frame. I'm going to switch my screen again. So our solution is an in-store as well as an online solution. It can help drive sales online, directly buying something. Other retailers integrate it as a direct-to-store because they don't want to sell online. But also a very nice solution is that we can retarget someone, let's say after 2 years with a new collection, still considering someone's facial features and someone's personality traits. What is the impact? We didn't expect it, but we are still quite proud of it. We see that over the board of our clients, an increase of 4 times, going from 1 to 4% or 2 to 8% of conversions. A massive impact, and at the same time, we see a heavy reduction of product returns because we understand consumers and they get the confidence that we recommend something that fits with their eyebrow, that fits with their jawline, that fits with their color, that fits with their personality. So underlying this, and I'm not going to stand still with this for a long time, we have a fixed boxes for understanding consumers, so interactions to understand, interactions to gather data about the consumer, whether it's images on the face or images to understand someone's body shape. We analyze it on body, fit, color, aesthetics, and trend. And at the same time, we also know it's important to understand your product. And I will get back to that in a little bit. For us, it's important that we do this on a human-centric way rather than a product description way. And the third step, going back to the 3 phases of hyper-personalization, is setting up interactions, showing the frames, how they fit on someone, because if you can see how it looks on you, you're also better able to say, well, this is not for me, or this is something for me. And I think the main part of our algorithms is that we have trained algorithms that really understand consumers. So I've shown you the shape of the eyebrow, the shape of the jawline, and this is all computer vision, looking at the contrast, looking at undertone. But at the same time, we have also trained algorithms to really understand qualities of frames. So looking at the shape, looking at the thickness, the variance of thickness, but also the contrast within the colors, outspokenness, and so on. A completely automated system. Where I think AI and where it is getting tricky is consumer frame matching. I'm just going to switch here. Consumer frame matching, that is where the magic is. So what frame do you recommend to the consumer? This is something that you don't let an AI decide without data. We decided to go for this by using AI stylists or stylists that train the AI, saying what's beautiful and ugly. They did that not just with 10 frames and telling to the programmers, program this rule. We have labeled over 40,000 face frame combinations, saying this is ugly, this is beautiful, and so on. AI to really understand consumers and giving a good recommendation. Oh. My takeaways. My takeaways are rethinking that what you learn from the customer and product. So are we talking about product data, or are we talking about something that consumers appreciate? Are we talking about demographics, or are we talking about value systems that consumers take when they are making a choice? Talking about desires. And at the same time, I think it's important that we rethink the way we gather data. Are we looking at the right RGB codes, or do we have to look at undertone? do we have to look at other kinds of qualities? And the last step, and I did not really go in depth into that, but our recommendations are trained by AI stylists, which is very important in the first place to make sure that we give a good recommendation, because an AI system wouldn't know. And the second place, consumers don't know. But it's also important to make sure that we are not developing biased systems. Those 40,000 face frame combinations were obviously not just white males. It was a variety set of different ethnicities and the different frame sets to make sure that in the end consumers can engage, they can like it, they can love it, and they can make confident choices in decision making. A final one.
So Jelle, we've actually run out of time. We're so sorry.
Perfect.
But the one thing that actually we wanted to ask you, and it's a big
Yes.
thing because you're working on something else as well, aren't you?
Yes. So I think that comes a little bit to the last point, is that it's important to set up interactions with end consumers. And we think it's important that consumers have beautiful images to interact with. So we have developed a product called Flare. And Flare, what it does, it allows brands that work with Clo and in the future also with other kinds of 3D software to generate quite easily high quality images that they can be using in their business to business, packshot formats, flat lay formats, but also on avatar. And the promise there is that we can make avatars with different ethnicities, different body shapes, not for seeing all kinds of differences, but for consumers to really understand what matches and what doesn't match, people and avatars that they can identify with, and at the same time, high quality images that fit with brand identity and the lighting and so on.
So thank you very much. So for all of you who have questions for Jelle, you please go on and ask him at his email below, as well as actually take a look at patterns.ai, and you'll find some other things. What actually Jelle is talking about is it's a computer vision kind of powered rendering pipeline, which we've all needed for a very long time. Okay. So with that, I want to thank Jelle